In this video, I'm breaking down everything wrong with Ghost of Yotei. It's one of the most beautiful yet controversial games I've played this year. Some call it a masterpiece, while others say it's just a reskinned Ghost of Tsushima. I wanted to find out who was right, so today I'm gonna go through the entire game, pointing out any mistakes, plot holes, or gameplay issues I run into. Now, before I get into it, I do want to make one thing clear. Nothing I say should take away from the fact that this game is amazing. I have immense respect for the developers who put in the hard work to bring it to life. But the truth is, no game is perfect. So let's dive in. The game opens with our main character, Atsu, cornered by a group of armed men. These men killed her entire family. The reason for this will be revealed later in the story. Their leader is revealed to be Lord Saito, an ex-samurai from a fallen clan. They pin her to her family's burning tree with her father's katana and leave her to die. Now, this made me wonder, why didn't the armed men just kill her instead of just leaving her behind to burn? You would think a group of trained killers would know how to finish the job, but I mean, the only thing I can think of is that Lord Saito says he needs to make an example of her and her family. Leaving a little girl pinned to a burning tree to die definitely does that. It would also make sense because travelers who travel by, or any shogun, would see this and know who did it. It's his way of instilling fear into people so they will obey him. But also, they could have just killed her, then left her pinned to the tree. That would have worked just as well. We then get a series of narration from Atsu, explaining that she survived and fled to the south. As she grew up, she worked for multiple for-hire militias, honing her skills for the sole reason of killing the Saito 6, avenging her family, and then joining them in death. She then writes their names down on a bandana and ties it around her hip. Next, Atsu pulls up to a town that is being occupied by Saito's outlaws. She then makes her way to a building down the road, which reveals that her first target, the snake, resides there. He and a group of armed men are drunk, and she sets the building on fire to draw them out, slaughtering the group of men before turning her attention to the snake. This fight acts as the first boss fight of the game, and also another tutorial. It teaches you how to block, hard attack, short attack, dodge. Atsu actually almost loses this fight, but wins by stabbing the snake while he has her pinned. This game then has a classic horse riding scene through a field of flowers, just like in Ghost of Tsushima. The only bad thing here is I get flashbanged by the sun like 3 times sitting in my pitch black bedroom. Also, I just want to clarify, I'll be referring back to Ghost of Tsushima a lot in this video because it is truly an amazing game, and it's the only thing I have to compare this game to. Everyone wants this game to one-up Ghost of Tsushima, so why not compare it to it? Atsu then sets off toward her old family home. There you learn a little bit more about Atsu's past and some more game mechanics such as bamboo cuts to increase her resolve and how to forge and upgrade weapons. This part of the story also introduces the ability to have flashbacks to the past, as well as plays Atsu as a child. These moments primarily teach you the new combat and movement abilities, along with deepening the game's backstory and lore. She then travels to a nearby inn, which is being currently occupied by Saito's outlaws. After defeating them, the innkeeper gives you important information regarding 3 of the 6 Saito leaders. You actually get to choose which one you want to learn about, which is a really cool feature. The only issue I see here is how does an innkeeper have such hyper-specific information on 3 of the 6 Saito 6 leaders? I understand that Saito outlaws had been staying there for a time, and he most likely overheard the information, but that information would probably be more vague than it's presented in the game. I don't know, maybe the innkeeper has superhuman hearing. Also, the game seems to be pushing the idea of her being an Onro really early on. I know I'm butchering that. I can't say it right for the life of me. I mean, this is practically the second mission, and they're already pushing the idea of her being a legend. The pacing feels a bit rushed, and like they're trying to follow in the footsteps of Ghost of Tsushima too early on. I feel like they need to give it more time to settle in first, with more missions before introducing the idea. Next, she travels to Yotei Mountain to learn the dual katana technique from Hanbei, an old friend of her father. Now, throughout the game, you will learn a lot of new weapon techniques and how to use new weapons. Personally, I really like this, but online, a few people complain about having to constantly switch weapons depending on what enemy you're attacking. I feel like that's the entire point though. It adds another layer of difficulty to the game and another skill level. If you're good at switching weapons and you know how to stun the enemies, it takes your ability to defeat bosses to a whole new level. During this time, there's another flashback to Atsu's past, showing that she led Lord Saito to her family home not knowing who he was. She feels as if her family's death was her fault, even though she was just a kid and didn't didn't know any better. After this, she gets word that one of the Saito Six is at a nearby fort. When she arrives, she overhears that Lord Saito is actually there overseeing recruit training. As you sneak through, you assassinate a few of Lord Saito's men. I point this out a lot throughout this game, but the assassinations are just too loud. After a failed assassination attempt, he challenges her to a duel. They fight, but are interrupted by a Shogun raid on the base. This early game story structure is the exact same as Ghost of Tsushima. In Ghost of Tsushima, you fight the main antagonist on the bridge near the beginning of the game, lose, and the antagonist escapes. Here, you fight the main antagonist early on, and the battle ends before you have a chance to finish it. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Don't fix it if it ain't broken, but I do wish the game had a little different story structure for something new and fresh. Looking online, a lot of people, through random encounters and Saito fort raids, you uncover the location of 3 of the Saito Six: the Oni, the Saito Brothers, and the Kitsome. Now, looking back at that, I realize that's actually 4 leaders, not 3. After riding to the Oni's location, you stumble on a transportation checkpoint being occupied by Clan Matsume. After a slight inconvenience, they let you pass through the gate, but not before Lord Kitamori stops you to return your transportation pass. As you two talk, you're attacked by Saito outlaws trying to take over the gate. You fight them off and decide to join forces with Lord Kitamori. The alternative would have been going to prison for being a gun for hire, so you didn't have much of a choice. At a campfire later that night, it is revealed that Lord Kitamori is actually your brother, Jubei. I like this because it finally reveals what happened to her brother, but it isn't elaborated on much. Jubei says he was saved by a samurai and nursed back to health, but that's all. I get that it was a traumatic event for him, and he doesn't want to talk about it, but I wish we got a flashback or something showing who the samurai was who saved him. I mean, most likely it was a member of the Matsume clan, but it would be cool to have a name. If it was Commander Wada, it could deepen their connection and explain why he's so loyal to him. After this, you travel back to the gate checkpoint to find it burned by Saito outlaws. You fight a few rounds of enemies before continuing through the gate into the new area. Then I went to a market nearby and, thanks to Jubei's tip, try to find more information on the Oni. Eventually, you stumble into a sake bar and find more information on a man called Mad Goro. One issue here is that it's really convenient that a man escaped the fort as soon as you arrived and needed help getting in. It's also really convenient that you overhear people talking about him in the bar. I know it's for gameplay reasons, but in reality, this would probably not happen. From here, you go on multiple missions trying to get into the Oni's fort and failing. You actually fail a total of 3 times, and by the 3rd time, it starts to feel pretty repetitive. But this part of the game does help deepen the bond between you and your long-lost brother, which I do really like. You eventually sneak into the fort through an underground mine, freeing samurai as you go, leading revolt against Oni's men, and Jubei actually acts as like the ultimate hype man through this part. He's constantly yelling these quotes and hyping you and his men up. I absolutely loved it. The only issue I have here is that when you free your fellow samurai, they seem to have a lot of strength to fight back. But in reality, they would probably be so exhausted that they could barely stand. You make your way through the fort, fighting waves of enemies before finally coming face to face with the Oni himself. The fight was honestly pretty dang hard. It took me about 8 tries to beat him. It's a 2-phase boss. The first phase is pretty easy, he just has a basic long sword, but the second phase is absolute hell. He lights his blade on fire, and it can kill you in like only 2 hits depending on your difficulty, but I do have no complaints here. I like hard boss fights. It makes defeating him even more satisfying. After defeating the Oni, you make him crawl into the middle of the camp where you and your brother finally kill your father's killer. Sorry to interrupt, but if you are enjoying this video, make sure to like and subscribe. I have a really small channel and everything helps me out so much. Thank you. Back to the video. Then I decided to go after the Kitsome, a spy for Lord Saito. The new area is mainly snowy mountains, with enemies that hide in the snow to ambush you. Speaking of which, you do get ambushed, and you see the Kitsome for the first time. He wears this white fox mask, which is actually really sick. But one issue here, how does he even see out of it? I mean, me personally, when I wear a Halloween mask, I can barely see or breathe out of it, yet this dude can fight with it on. I know he's a trained killer and all, but being a trained killer doesn't magically upgrade your eyes. From here, you go to a local inn and meet a local musician named Aoki, who seems to know a lot about the Kitsome, so you go with her in hopes of tracking him down. You do a few more missions with her, which primarily focus on traps and puzzles. The puzzles are cool, but they can start to feel a little repetitive at times. I like them, but sometimes I think they're used to draw out gameplay time rather than add anything to the story or gaming experience. You finally find the Kitsome. You go and fight him, but are interrupted by a nearby samurai clan raiding the fort. This alerts the Kitsome, and you lose the advantage of surprise and ultimately lose the fight due to a toxin he affects you with. You then get saved by Aoki and wake up at a nearby campfire. It is here that you find out that she's actually been the Kitsome the entire time. This is how she knew so much about the Kitsome and his poison's location. A flashback shows that she was there the night her mother hanged, but didn't partake in her death. Instead, she held Atsu back from helping her mother. You can actually see her rubbing Atsu's arm, trying to secretly comfort her. It then shows that she actually cut Atsu free and let her try and run away. This is what resulted in her losing her position as the Kitsome. One thing I wish they explained more is why she joined the Saito 6 in the first place. I want to know her backstory. I mean, I may have missed it, but all we know is that she worked closely with Saito and knows the ins and outs of his operation. I would have had more sympathy for the character if she showed her being forced to work for Saito or something like that. But on the other hand, if they did do that, then it would take away from Atsu's later internal conflict, which is kind of the whole point, so I don't know. Also, how did she not recognize her voice? I get that she was a kid, and it was a traumatic event. But if I thought someone helped kill my mom, I would definitely remember what they sounded like. They don't really address this, and it kind of just gets overlooked for story convenience. Afterwards, she leaves you alone by the campfire and tells you to meet her at her home. You meet her there, and she tries to explain to Atsu what happened. But Atsu was so blinded by her hatred that she forces her into a duel. Finally, through the duel, she convinces Atsu to listen, and reluctantly, she agrees to hear her out and learn a new technique she can use against the Kitsome. These abilities are the smoke bomb and listening ability, the same abilities that were in the first game. That's actually one thing that's pretty consistent throughout the game. A lot of abilities are the same in Ghost of Tsushima as they are in Ghost of Yotei. After training, they duel again, not only because Atsu wants her revenge, but also to train against the Kitsome's toxin. I do have to say, the toxin itself isn't explained well. The first time you get hit with it, you pass out. But during the duel, you just have hallucinations. This could be chalked up to building up tolerance, but that takes a longer period of time than what is presented in the story. They did it this way to cut out the boring stuff, but I gotta point it out. By the end of the duel, you decide to spare her life and forgive her. You join forces with the common enemy to kill Lord Saito's spy. I have conflicting feelings about this. If Atsu's whole life revolves around killing the Saito 6, I feel like she would be so blinded by hatred that she would kill Aoki. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad she didn't, but I feel like they sacrificed the character's morals for the sake of story progression. Now, this could be chalked up to character development and her learning to forgive, but that comes later in the story. I guess what I'm trying to say is I feel like she was too easily convinced. I wish there were more heart-to-heart conversations between the characters. You know, add some dang tears into it. But it did add a lot more good depth to the story, and when she crossed the Kitsome's name off for the list, it showed that death wasn't the only possible atonement for her enemies. You then team up to kill the new Kitsome. You break into his underground fortress, fight waves of enemies, and eventually 1v1 him while your ally takes care of the surrounding foes. The fight is great. It has 2 stages, and it's pretty difficult. I was playing on medium, and it took me a few tries to beat him. He uses a smoke ability to blind you, and you have to use your hearing ability taught by Aoki to listen and defend against his attacks. After defeating him, you leave, and your new friend says she is willing to help you kill Lord Saito when the time comes. After this, I did a bunch of side missions and bounties, cleared out some of the Saito camps, and upgraded my character a good amount so I'd be prepared for the next area. I really like how the bounties are formatted. They don't take too long to do, and it's not a wild goose chase the whole time. Now, when it comes to Saito camps, I wish there was an easier way to locate them. I know you can find their positions through dialogue with NPC characters, but through Ghost of Tsushima, you could identify them through smoke in the sky. Here, I don't believe there's any way to identify them, so I feel like you could be running around for a little while trying to locate them all, which is kind of a waste of time. Also, I like the random encounters, but they can get a little repetitive. It's almost the same Ronin people every time that you fight, take out pretty dang easily, and then loot. Not a big deal, just a little nitpick. But I do like how they increase the difficulty of Saito's men for random encounters though. It adds another layer of difficulty to the game. You then go back home to meet up with your brother, and the game reveals through a cutscene that he was actually shot by the Saito brothers, and that's why Atsu thought he was dead. Let's be real though, a shot like that to the chest would definitely kill someone his size, especially with that type of gun. Aoki then arrives at the house, and Jubei finds out that she was the Kitsome. Of course, he wasn't happy that Atsu joined forces with her, but she does provide valuable information on the Saito Brothers' locations and their plan of attack. Again, I wish there was more conflict here. He holds a grudge, but realistically, he would try to fight her despite Atsu telling him not to. It turns out that Lord Saito planned a full-scale attack with a fleet of men, with the goal of destroying Matsumai Castle and killing all the samurai. You wait until nightfall, sneak through, and assassinate a bunch of Lord Saito's men. Again, there's absolutely no way they didn't hear this. She's literally flying in and no one hears. You eventually make your way to Jubei's home, where it's revealed that he has a daughter named Kiko, who was hiding from Atsu to protect her from the war. Then you unlock a new area to explore. This follows the exact same story structure as the last two sections, where you meet up with a master, they teach you a new weapon technique, in this case a pistol, and then you go fight the big bad boss. It can feel a little repetitive, but I'm not sure there'd be a better way to really do it, so it's fine. Next, you go to the Matsumai Castle, and there's actually this cute moment you have with Jubei's daughter where you pick out flowers that symbolize different meanings. It helps deepen the connection character between the two, but it did make me really nervous because I thought the kid was gonna die. Then you speak with Jubei and Commander Wada about plans of fighting against the Saito outlaws. One issue here is that she's been kicked out every single time, and all of a sudden she's allowed in. It's like he had a complete 180 change in character. It's probably because she killed a bunch of Lord Saito 6 leaders and she's useful to him, but still. They then plan on defeating the spider and using him as bait to draw in his brother, the dragon. You then go to his estate, where he's staying, and sneak in dressed up as actors. I do gotta point out though, how did no one notice her walking in sooner? You see them stumbling away from her like they're scared, but no one warns the spider. It just kinda seems off. The fight against the spider is amazing. You unlock the ghost stance, and you use the dual katana technique to fight hordes of enemies. The enemies here are relatively weak, so it allows you to get your ghost stance quickly, but cinematically it is an amazing fight. Afterwards, you meet back up with Jubei and Aoki, and they try to convince you that the path you're on isn't right and that it will only end badly. This is a pivotal point in the game's story, solidifying the character's morals for revenge. I actually like that they fixed this from the previous game, because their morals can feel wishy-washy at times. Afterwards, you go and try to make the spider talk. You plan on staging his public execution as a way to bait in his brother. You find Kiku talking to the spider, and it's finally decided that it's time for her to train instead of being protected from the war and what's happening around her. One issue I see here is how the heck did the guards let her in? I know that she's a very cunning little girl, and she's good at lying, but I feel like no matter what, they wouldn't let her in. During the stage execution, their plan gets fooled. The boats are fake, and Clan Saito raids the castle from a different entrance. The spider and the dragon end up on the shore. How did they not plan for this? Why did they take all the defense away from the main entrance for a staged execution? I know they wanted to try to capture the dragon, but they should have divided their forces better. Atsu has to then make a choice between helping her brother defend her niece or take the revenge she was always wanted. She decides to take the revenge. You end up fighting the dragon in the spider, and end up killing the dragon as the spider runs off. This is one of the most annoying fights in the entire game, because his brother shoots at you from afar, and randomly he'll just whip out a pistol and shoot you, but still, it's a good fight, just a little annoying. You then fight through waves and waves of enemies, making your way to your brother's house to make sure that he is okay. Once you make it to his home, you find it burning to the ground. You run to a nearby temple, which they agreed they would go to for refuge. You find that he isn't there, but Kiku is alive and well. You have to break the news that you can't go back and save your brother, because the castle was taken by Lord Saito's men. Just a couple things here. The game never explains how Kiko escaped or how your brother and Aoki got captured. I'm surprised they didn't just kill them on the spot. I mean, it's not like they have that much information Lord Saito would need anyways. You then end up going back to your family home and staying the night with Kiko. Atsu then gets waken up by Kiko yelling, practicing her fighting against Saito's men. It's a really cool moment where you can see the reflection of Atsu through Kiko and how she seeks revenge on Saito. It's a moment of realization for Atsu. But I gotta point out, Kiko's yelling would have probably drawn some of Saito's men to their home, so that was kinda stupid. You leave Kiko at their home and then go find Hanbei. Hanbei suggests you should look for the spider at his family's burial ground, where he may bury his brother. So you go to the burial ground and wait. You go, and when he arrives, it's an emotional moment. He explained that Lord Saito's daughters starved to death when Atsu's father abandoned them. This explains why Lord Saito wanted to kill Atsu's father and family so badly. You chase him down and duel him on top of a mountain, but in the end, you decide to spare him, cutting his neck and taking the little blood that it took and crossing off his name from the list. Because of how his father betrayed him, he decides to help you find you and your new family. He does this because this is his last chance at redemption. Only issue I found during that fight is I kept running into this glitch where he would freeze and then the screen would just go black. I'm not sure if that's an issue on my side or just a game bug, but either way. When you arrive at Lord Saito's fortress, you can see that it's not even that well hidden. It's mentioned that it sits above the clouds and that no one had found it yet, but I think that's just for gameplay convenience. If they had been at war with them for so long, don't you think they would have found the location of the fortress? Or maybe they just did and they decided they didn't want to attack? I don't know. Also, when you slide down the rocks into the fort, there's no way no one didn't hear that. You sneak through the fortress, saving Jubei and Aoki. You then find out that Lord Saito went back to your home to finish the fight where it all started and avenge his sons. You realize this is where you left Kiko and rush home. When you arrive, he's already there, but agrees to let Kiko go if everyone else leaves and you agree to fight him. The fight is pretty dang hard. It took me quite a few tries just to get through the first phase, but during the second phase, Jubei actually appears and saves you and helps you out for a while. Sadly, Jubei does get pierced by Lord Saito's katana, leaving him wounded and out of the fight. You finish the fight having flashbacks to the burning tree. This moment is extremely cinematic, and you end up pinning Lord Saito to the same tree you were pinned to with his own blade. He taunts you to finish him off and take your revenge, but you choose otherwise, to spend your time with Jubei in his last moments. This is the moment the on-road died. She chose family over revenge. Sadly, Jubei dies, you hug Kiko, and the screen fades black. This game actually does something that not a lot of other games do. It gives you closure. It has a flash forward 6 months that shows Atsu and Kiko living happily together. You ride through the forest, back home, and the game ends. Of course, after the main story, you can continue to explore and clear up any other side missions. This game was absolutely beautiful. I don't understand why it's getting so much hate online. The community seems so divided between it being a woke and bad game and it being an amazing and great sequel to Ghost of Tsushima. But there's one thing I know for sure, I know what side I'm on. With that being said, no game is perfect. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.